Roger.
Yes.
Roger, please come up and tell us what is happening with the short play contest.
Thanks. I'm just going to review a little bit about the guidelines for a short play and some of the things that we're going to ask you to do. In fact, the thing that often kills people in these contests is they don't follow the submission guidelines or the format guidelines. And those are important in submitting plays. So I'm going to go over a little bit of those issues. How many have written a play? Yeah, good number. How many have their play performed? So, half a dozen here. Well, think about it this way. If you submit a screenplay or a stage play, which there's fewer today than ever, and theaters crave stage plays. But if you submit a screenplay, because you think you're going to be in the movies, which you aren't, you will submit it to a contest or some kind of thing. There'll be 1,000 others, and you'll wait a year and not be chosen. But in 2 months, you could have your play produced in a legitimate theater because of Redwood.
Wow.
And I got to tell you, having had 2 plays produced, there is nothing in the world like seeing your words come to life. It's a different experience as a writer. And you cannot appreciate what it's like until it happens to you. But this is a golden opportunity for you guys to, in fact, write a great play. And you know, if you have a play that's performed, you can send it to hundreds of other play groups, because once it's known it's been performed, it goes up in the stack as possibilities for other reading groups or stage play groups. Now here are the submission guidelines. These are all on the website. They'll be in this and a handout. Don't have to write anything down, just listen. If there are questions, then I'll ask them. And I didn't have Adele review this because I made this slide from what's on our website. It's open to everyone. But the important thing is, if you're a CWC member anywhere in the state, then you get a different price than a non-member gets in submitting. Only original, unpublished, unproduced works. So, fortunately, when we did it with Off the Page originally, they took our anthology and they chose 10 plays. Okay? And then they converted them. But that's not what's going to happen here. So if you already had a play produced or you published it in a book, you could not submit it to this contest. So it has to be unpublished and unproduced. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. This is a reader's theater, so it has to be appropriate to a reader's theater. There aren't props in a reader's theater. I wrote, he goes to the coffee pot and picks it up. It's an ace coffee pot. Not going to happen. And the first comment from the judge was, there are no props. Didn't you know that? Okay, so there's no props technically. You can have them make sounds, maybe. But if you think they're going to do, galloping horses like the radio in the 1930s, I don't think so. Okay. There's no limit to page length, but if it's over 10 pages, you're making a mistake. But the important thing is it has to be 10 minutes or less read. So if you pack all of 10 pages with 3,000 lines, it isn't going to be accepted at all. It'll be rejected right offhand. Yeah? You can have 5 characters, one of which could be a narrator. The action takes place in one scene. It's scene 1, act 1, and there ain't no act 2. Although in Reader's Theater, off the page, they may do a narration, and then they'll go to the actual scene. So technically, that's like an act 1 and act 2 in playwriting. But the important idea is don't complicate it by 6 or 7 scenes, because the audience won't understand it. You can use any standard play format, but we're going to show you one that simplifies that for reading theater. Not political, not religious, it's not an essay, it's not a poem. It needs to be uplifting, provocative, or poignant. Okay, now, they have read great poems in the past, but we're really trying to create a short story that's read. Okay, so I would restrict yourself to be more competitive. Single space, type font, New Times Roman, 12 point. Judging is blind, no name on your script. Immediate family and chairs cannot have submit. It's $10 to us as members. It's $15 if you're not a member. For those guests, that if you want to submit, you get a bargain if you join the club. And the other thing is, this is unusual too. You can submit up to 2 plays, but only one would be produced if chosen. But that's another advantage that, you know, comedy and drama.
Yeah.
Okay, format, just to be simple. Title at the top, centered. No author name. Page number, they didn't really specify this in our guidelines, but if you look at off the page, they put the page number at the top, whatever that is. Right. Right? Right. They put it in the top right. And they also named the title of the play. But we didn't specify that, but I would use the top right, and I don't believe any change in that paging will matter. But non-paging is a serious mistake.
Oh, yeah.
Because we'll treat that as you didn't follow guidelines.
Well, points get taken off.
Points get taken off.
Because there's a rubric.
Right.
For every contest that we do, there's a rubric.
Right.
And you do need to follow what it's asking. And if you don't understand it, there's a person to contact.
So after the title, you should put the scene and the characters in it, which is a standard format in play formats. And I'll show that. And remember that one of the characters could be called narrator. Now again, there's no props, or only those appropriate to a reading play, and there are no actions. Even though they're standing next to one another, they're not going to hate each other or fight or, you know, drink whiskey or anything. They're just not going to go because St. Patrick's Day is over. Okay. Character names are centered and capitalized on the page as they appear for dialogue. Dialogue is left justified. The dialogue in a play, in any play, is the key to the play. But when you have a stage play, action can be every bit as important. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, when they throw each other around in the front room on the couch, is a big deal. You don't have that advantage here. So remember that it's really dialogue and telling the story through narration. Okay? No dialogue tags. I submitted one to these guys, and I just took it from my short story, and I failed to remove "said Roger." That would tell you didn't read the instructions. You can have stage directions if you want, like silent, he sighs, she moans. That's okay. But you know, generally, directors hate it when you do that. They're not really appreciative of most stage directions because they want to decide those things. Okay. Start with what is the premise. What's the theme that you want to talk about? An elderly couple talks about how pointless their lives have been. Premise. Okay? You're going to talk about, I'm out of camera.
I know.
Sorry, yeah, no.
I know.
You're going to talk about how your dog and cat are the only people that love you. Premise. The theme is different than premise. The theme could be lost love or found love. Okay? Think about, before you start writing anything, think about 5 premises for a story. Write down 10, like brainstorming. Write down 10 premises. And then pick the one you want. The other short advice I'll give you is, take a line from a song that you love. 2 nights ago, I heard David Lunning. You know who he is? Local singer-songwriter, great singer-songwriter, American Idol. David is moving to Los Angeles, and he did a farewell performance. And one of his songs, he says, sort of the question is, how long can a man long for a woman? I guess I'll find out. Yeah. Did you just go, oh yeah? Jonathan Brooks has a line that says, all things being equal, her beauty was not her fault, and it was not her only advantage. So find a great line you love from a song, and write a short story around that. Okay. It should be written for impact. Write a first draft and then revise every action kind of word, every dramatic word to be a higher level of drama or humor. If you write it and you think it's funny, make sure you read it and somebody laughs. If they don't laugh, Okay, lean, cut everything that you don't need. Cut everything that slows down the play when you read it aloud. Confusion kills a play. I heard them read one recently, and I thought the changeover to one setting to another and what happened was terribly confusing, and I lost interest in the play. And as you know, usually the middle of any play or any story, it bulges with dullness. So, I can attest to that. So just consider that, and make the ending as strong as power as possible. They should be crying or laughing. If they're not crying, when you say the end, it's not working yet. If you aren't crying, give the play to a trusted reader. Read everything out loud and time it. Read it out loud and time it again. And for gosh sakes, proof it for grammar, spelling, and format. Now, I know this is hard to see, and of course you can't tell where the page is. I should have put a page border. But it's just to show, look at the top, in quotes, in caps, title. Below that it says Scene 1 in caps. Then it says Sally Brown, a character, in caps. The characters are always in caps. Robert Brown are sitting at the breakfast table in their vacation condo in Florida. Then that's a set scene description for the director. That's why it's in red. I don't mean it to appear on the page. It's explaining to you what this is about. So the red on the page is for you. It's not an example. Does that make sense? Okay. So the play starts with the narrator, and the narrator says Sally and Robert Brown are sitting at a kitchen table on their vacation condo in Florida. They've been married 25 years. You don't have to open with a narration, but it's a strategy. Okay. Now this person put in a pause, and then Sally speaks. Now she's standing and she's reading, and she says, "Bob, I have something to tell you." And the character next to her, who's Bob, Robert, says, "Can't it wait? I'm reading the paper." And she says, "I'm leaving you." And he says, "Is there more bacon?" Not a good enough joke. Okay. And then at the end of the play, it says fade out on the right. And those are all the format we need. Okay? It's simpler than, now if you use Final Draft, which is what I use for screenwriting and playwriting, great product. It has templates in it. But this is as simple as it gets, guys, in my opinion. But now let me show you this. There's my play from off the page. They simply took my short story. They've produced it 9 times now, because it's funny.
It is funny.
They took my story, and I thought they did all kinds of editing and crafting, and I was like, wow, look what they did. And then when I heard it the 9th time, I realized it's exactly the words from the short story. There's nothing changed by them. All they did was add a color coding of who would read it. Now, you shouldn't format yours that way. But think about this, okay? This is the person in India who sent this letter, Charles Pine. And so that the guy who's a great Indian actor, he's not Indian, but he sounds like he's British Indian. He says, "Dear Mr. Periwinkle," and he reads this part of the play. It's a letter.
Yeah.
Then the main character, Walter, that's not dialogue, that's Walter doing a tell. But any tell that's about Walter, that character will read it along with his dialogue. Does that make sense? Now that's a clever strategy that's not apparent in playwriting, but for this kind of theater, it really works. Okay? And then you've got, it says Kelly said. Now that's a woman. It was written as prose, and this is in third person. So I'm just writing you to tell you, Kelly said the following. But what they did is, instead of having a narrator read those, the actor playing Kelly reads them. Okay? So you can really think about crafting all this, and look at the next yellow. So Walter reads the letter that looks like a reader's, whatever that's called, when you get magazines. Publishers Clearinghouse. Walter reads that part. Walter was surprised to see, but then he says, "I read the words," and instead of him reading the words, which he could have, the character again in India reads the words, because he's the one who wrote them. Now, I just think that's pretty darn clever, and again, you're not going to give this format to them, but it's a way of thinking about structure of this kind of play. Now, I've included advice that Linda Reed provided. She's a director, and she's provided lots of opportunities for plays and did them in the past. And this is just her outline, but you need to be careful because she's writing for a full play in full play format. And some of her advice, it's kind of going back and forth. So some of the advice, you just have to remember, what am I writing here? I don't know if I can actually do this because I have to go and do it, but I may have to disconnect my computer. Sorry to do that. But see if I can find there it is.
All right.
Marriage is all about togetherness. But even after 37 years of better or worse,
I should put it
I'm
on
not
speaker.
always sure what that means.
So those are the readers.
My husband and I often spend our evenings together in separate parts of the
This
house.
is Hillary on the end,
I'm upstairs.
and she's doing the tell.
He's down in the shop tinkering with his collection.
On the other side is
broken
Beth,
guitar
who's one of our
amplifiers.
judges, and Hillary's one of our judges.
He usually dozes off.
But think about it again, they're not acting,
We don't end up
and yet they're
sleeping
using
together,
voice acting.
which has
And
its own
this will be the
challenges.
format you will see them in. Does that make sense? Okay.
Our togetherness
I'm going to stop it
issues
there.
don't end there.
And just if you have
I want to travel the world.
any questions,
He would rather stay at home and save.
I'll answer them. Any questions? Let me start here with Jeannie.
Well, because it's Reader's Theater, they're not really exiting and entering the stage.
No, right, they never leave.
But sometimes.
They'll sit down
they turn
sometimes.
around, or else they'll sit down.
They'll sit down, yeah.
So as you write the
No,
play,
no.
you put.
No stage directions. Hillary will do all of that. I'm sorry? No, nothing like that.
Okay.
They don't, that would be that you're not understanding what the play is. Because there's not entering and exiting. They're right
No, I
there.
know that, but.
I know at traditional,
In traditional Reader's Theater scripts, though, they'll have like maybe offstage focus, or they will have,
that's up to you, but
turns their back to the
yeah.
audience.
But again, remember, that's what Hillary's job is as a director.
Driving in the Dark by Joanne Rosen.
Great.
He knew it would be a mistake to let Bella drive. She was hard on cars, and his was past its prime.
You don't want to drive all day, Charles. How far is it to Joshua Tree? You'll need a break.
I'll be fine. You need a holiday from driving.
Bella drove an airport shuttle full time in city snarling traffic.
Bullshit, I do. I like my job.
She sulked all the way to Modesto. Finally, he decided it wasn't worth spoiling their vacation, and he pulled off the highway at a truck stop.
Promise not to speed, Bella.
Cross my heart.
She was all smiles and dimples now. They got out of the car to stretch. Bella flounced over and pressed herself against him.
Thanks, babe.
The trucker turned to stare. She was a little plump, a knockout in tight jeans and low-cut shirt. Charles, thin and angular, relished the contrast. It was cool in the valley for February and windy. Under a cloudless sky, Highway 99 went straight on forever through flat and stubbled fields, bypassing the towns. Bella wove between double-load semis, talking nonstop about her psychology classes at City College.
You really should express your feelings more. I think you're getting emotionally constipated.
She drove faster. The speedometer read 80 and rising.
Bella, you promised not to speed.
There's nothing to see. It's ugly. Let's just get through it.
This really, really sucks. How can I ever trust you?
Lighten up, will you? You're so neurotic about your car. It's making me crazy.
He took a deep breath. This was only day one. They stopped for lunch in a hamburger stand in Fresno, and Charles reclaimed his keys, though not without a fuss. He promised she could drive again later, but neither of them believed it. They ordered burgers and coffee, and he spread out the map.
We can take this alternate route to Bakersfield. Get off 99. Go through the small towns. There'll be something to look at.
Bella shrugged. Back in the car, she sat with arms folded across her chest, staring ahead. Charles ignored her. He enjoyed driving on two-lane roads, closer to the details. A decaying barn, water pump, large rolls of something stacked in intervals. They were bales of cotton, he realized. Now Bella was snapping photos out of her window. She turned and trained the camera on him. He made a horrible face and she burst out laughing. He breathed easier.
It's still boring as shit. Where are those little towns?
Well, the sky isn't boring.
A haze was staining the horizon bluish brown like a veil over a bruise and spreading as they watched. The wind picked up, rattling the car, and the cars ahead were slowing down.
Something weird's going on.
He turned on the radio but could raise only static.
Pull over. I can't get a clear shot through the windshield.
Pull over where?
The road had no shoulders. He drove on. The sky darkened abruptly and the wind shrilled. In the fields, cotton bales began to tumble. He switched on the brights and they rolled up the windows. Within minutes, he was following the red lights of a car not 10 feet ahead, and the car behind was tailgating. The air was thick with dust that blotted out the sun.
What is this?
Dust storm. The damn cotton had stripped the soil.
He talked, to distract her and himself, about pre-European grasslands in California while visibility continued to decline. Soon he could barely discern the taillights before them or the headlights behind.
It's like a recurring dream I've had.
Tell me about it.
But they're driving dreams. I'm driving in pitch blackness and I can't see a thing. I don't know where I am or where I'm going. I've had them for years.
Well, they're clear as daylight to me.
What?
You're blind to your innermost feelings.
Well, that's an interesting possibility.
You really are a lost soul. I could help you if you'd let me.
I don't think we'd have a healthy therapeutic relationship, babe. You're not supposed to sleep with your clients.
I don't like that rule.
They were quiet for a few minutes. Then the car shook and swerved in a sudden gust and she burst out.
Jesus, are we going to get out of here alive?
Bella crossed herself, something he had never seen her do. He tightened the grip on the wheel.
Everyone's driving so slow, even if we collided, we'd be fine. It's under control, believe me.
Under control. Now there's the root of your problem.
Hey, I'll look into those dreams, okay?
You're just saying that. I know you'll never do it.
No, I mean it. I still have all my psych books from college.
You never told me you studied psychology.
Yeah, I did the whole Freudian analysis, A to Z. It took me a year. The dreams must have started after that.
You analyzed yourself?
No, it wasn't hard. I figured out lots of stuff.
Like what?
Oh, childhood trauma, parents, the usual.
Why'd you stop?
What's the use of stirring up the same stuff over and over again?
That's so typical of you, Mr. Charlie Know-It-All.
Isabella, you're not helping this lost soul by insulting him.
Oh,
She stared straight ahead, blinking.
look! Is that a turn signal? Pull in! Pull in there!
Charles followed the car ahead off the road to where one arc light burned dimly on a tall pole. It was a diner, its parking lot filling with cars. He turned off the ignition, surprised to find his hands were shaking, and looked quickly at Bella. Her mouth was a tight line as if she were trying not to cry. He didn't know what to say to her. They got out and struggled a few yards to the door, hands over their faces, gritty dust in their mouths. Inside, the diner was brightly lit, and people stood in every available space, chattering excitedly. Charles, frozen like a deer in headlights, stared at the crowd.
Bella, where are you going? Stop!
But she hadn't heard him. She elbowed her way through the counter, and he followed in her wake.
Hello, how you doing?
She boomed cheerily right and left, and strangers took their hands and greeted them. Trays of coffee and burgers glided by, and dishes clattered in the kitchen. A TV set was mounted on a shelf in one corner, flickered on and off, spluttering, unintelligible sound. Someone fiddled with the settings. Suddenly, the screen came into focus. A newscaster was describing a 25-car collision on Highway 99 during the evening commute. Everyone stopped talking and turned to watch. They saw smoke and flames, twisted and blackened cars, clumps of soot-faced people, ambulances, body bags. It could be one of the circles of hell, Charles thought. His hands still trembled. Then the screen went back. A young girl cried, "Daddy's on that road!" And someone else said, "Geez, we almost went that way."
So did we.
Landlines were down, cell phones not working. The mood in the diner lowered. People spoke in anxious whispers. Bella turned to Charles, stamp-eyed with arms open.
Mr. Know-it-all, you saved our lives.
He wasn't sure he knew anything at all anymore, other than the need to be held and the heat of her embrace.